In this business, you gotta be able to have people disrespecting you. And you gotta smile and you gotta pretend like that's okay.
You can't punish people for mistakes. You know, it's like you have to forgive people. And a big part of that, you know, is forgiving yourself.
The only thing that I see that is distinctly different about me is I'm not afraid to die on a treadmill.
Something has seriously shifted in Will Smith, and Hollywood is straight up panicking. The man who once shocked the world by slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars, he's not the same guy anymore. Not even close. There's been a full-on transformation happening behind the scenes, one that caught the entire entertainment world off guard. And now, as Will starts peeling back the curtain on how Hollywood really moves, the suits, publicists, and power players are losing their minds trying to stop the fallout. Because when a man who helped rake in nearly $9 billion at the box office suddenly starts spilling the truth after decades of keeping quiet, the whole system starts shaking.
Strangers, and you just don't know what's going on with people. That was a horrific night. I lost it. It justifies my behavior at all. We just gotta be nice to each other, man.
But let's make one thing crystal clear. This isn't about the slap anymore. This has nothing to do with Chris Rock, Jada, or the Oscars. This is about what came after. The isolation, the silence, and the way the industry turned its back on the very man who made them millions. That rejection cracked something inside Will. And in that quiet darkness, he finally saw the ugly machine he'd been fueling for 30 long years. And what he uncovered? It's the stuff of Hollywood's worst nightmares. So let's rewind to where everything shifted. The slap that shattered the illusion. March 27th, 2022, the 94th Academy Awards. Will Smith walked up on that stage and smacked Chris Rock in front of over 15 million stunned viewers worldwide. You've seen it. Everyone's seen it. That calm walk, the sharp crack of contact, the shockwave of silence that followed. Then, not even an hour later, the same crowd that gasped stood up and cheered, giving him a standing ovation as he took home Best Actor. But here's what almost no one dares to say. The moment Will's hand hit Chris Rock's face, something way bigger broke. The picture-perfect image Will had spent 30 years crafting just crumbled. The Fresh Prince, the family man, the feel-good superstar who only made uplifting films, gone in an instant. For decades, he'd been playing that role so well, he forgot there was a real person underneath all that perfection.
The thing, and one of the things that I learned.
What's the message, dude?
Every single person is having a hard time. Every single person you drive past on the freeway, every single person you walk by in that store, that person that looks like an ass is they might be being an ass right now. At the moment, they're having a hard time.
That slap, it wasn't just rage, it was the mask glitching. The avatar breaking down right in front of the whole world. 30 years of pressure, of faking smiles, of keeping it clean. All of it clashed with one brutal second of raw, real emotion. And once that mask split open for everyone to see, there was no patching it back up. Jim Carrey saw it right away. Just 3 days after the Oscars, he went on CBS Mornings and dropped something deep, something that hit harder than the slap itself. Jim Carrey talked about how Will had built this perfect avatar, a polished version of himself he'd kept alive for decades. And when Chris Rock's joke cut too close, Will didn't really jump up to defend his wife. He was defending that illusion. But here's what Jim couldn't have known back then. That slap didn't just scratch Will's image, it obliterated it. And when that image burned to the ground, it forced Will to face something he'd been dodging his whole career. The question he never wanted to answer. Who is Will Smith when he stops performing? Hollywood's reaction came fast and brutal. Will resigned from the Academy on April 1st, 2022. Just a week later, they banned him from every Academy event for an entire decade. Netflix froze his projects, Apple dropped Emancipation with barely any promo, and his Q score, the number that tracks celebrity likability, nosedived from 39 to 19 in under 2 years. But the harshest hit wasn't in the headlines, it was in the silence. The calls stopped, meetings vanished, promises turned to dust. Hollywood didn't destroy Will Smith in public, it just erased him quietly behind closed doors. The calls just stopped. One studio executive even told Variety in March 2023, everyone was waiting to see who would blink first. They said it wasn't just about what Will did, it was what he did after. And that line haunted him. Because after the slap, Will stayed right there at the ceremony, accepted his Oscar, gave a teary speech, and later danced at the after-party, all while the world watched in disbelief. To Hollywood, that was the real sin. In their eyes, he should have been kicked out immediately, maybe even arrested. But instead, he looked like a man who thought he could still celebrate after assaulting someone live on TV. The industry didn't see confusion or shock, they saw arrogance.
I've been to the top of all of those material world mountains, and nothing makes you happy other than being useful to others. That's it. That's the only thing that ever will satisfy that thing, is that what you are is useful.
But Will later opened up in interviews saying he wasn't in control that night. He was dissociating, operating on autopilot, so deep in his performance mode that he couldn't even step out of character after doing something that shook him to his core. That haunting realization, it became the spark that lit up everything that came next. From April 2022 to early 2024, Will Smith basically vanished. No big interviews, no red carpets, barely a trace online. He disappeared into what he called the darkest period of my life. But while Hollywood thought he was broken, something else was quietly happening. In that silence, Will Smith started waking up. He began working with therapists, spiritual mentors, and people far outside Hollywood's bubble. He meditated for hours every day, dove into philosophy, and started tearing apart his entire life with raw, unfiltered honesty. Something was shifting, and it was nothing Hollywood saw coming. What Will uncovered during that time shook him to his core. In a private talk that later leaked among insiders, he reportedly said, "I've been performing since I was 12 years old. I don't know who I am when I'm not trying to make people love me." That's a gut-wrenching confession from someone who's been one of the biggest names on earth for over 3 decades. But it went even deeper. Will started digging into where that hunger for approval came from. His strict relationship with his father, the pressure of being the main provider for his family as a teenager, and the way early fame taught him that love equals applause. The same machine that grabbed a talented kid from West Philly and turned him into a shiny, sellable product. And here's where things took a wild turn. Will began questioning everything: the Hollywood image control, the scripted interviews, the PR polished posts pretending to be real, the whole performance of authenticity that's actually just another mask. He even looked at his marriage with Jada and saw the hard truth. For years, they'd been performing their relationship for the public while living totally separate lives since 2016. Then came the career wake-up call. He realized he'd been chasing trophies and validation instead of art that truly fulfilled him. Every choice, every smile, every interview, all part of a polished illusion that had trapped him in a cage of his own making. And that realization, that raw awakening, is what has Hollywood trembling, because a star having a meltdown is easy to manage, but a star waking up, that's chaos they can't control. A canceled star, that's predictable, but a star who wakes up and starts seeing the system for what it really is, that's dangerous. And Hollywood knows it. And then came Jada's bombshell, the moment that kicked Will's awakening into overdrive. October 2023, Jada Pinkett Smith hit the promo trail for her memoir Worthy, and out of nowhere, she dropped a revelation that rocked the whole industry. She and Will had actually been separated since 2016. That truth hit harder than anyone expected, and for good reason. First off, it meant that the now infamous Red Table Talk episode where they discussed her entanglement with August Alsina wasn't a couple trying to heal. It was a performance. They weren't even together. They were acting out therapy for the cameras. Second, and this is what stunned everyone, Will had slapped Chris Rock in front of the entire world to defend a woman who hadn't technically been his wife in a traditional sense for 6 years. He didn't defend a marriage, he defended an illusion. But the most important part? For Will, that moment confirmed everything he'd been uncovering during his deep dive into himself. His whole life, the marriage, the family image, the smiles, had all been perfectly packaged for public approval. Behind the cameras, the truth looked nothing like the picture-perfect version the world adored. Insiders later said Jada's revelations didn't destroy Will. They actually freed him, because they proved what his therapy had been showing all along. His entire world had been built on appearances, not authenticity. A source close to Will told Page 6 in late 2023. He's not angry at Jada. He's grateful. She freed him from having to keep up the lie. That one quote said everything. And that's when Hollywood really started to panic. Because of Free Will Smith, that's someone they can't control anymore. But just as it seemed like Will was finally finding peace in his awakening, another storm hit. And this one was explosive. In early 2025, violinist Brian King Joseph filed a shocking lawsuit accusing Will's team of sexual harassment, retaliation, and wrongful termination linked to his tour. The claims were wild. Joseph said someone had unlawfully entered his Las Vegas hotel room, leaving behind HIV medication, hospital discharge papers, and a handwritten note hinting at a planned sexual encounter. When he reported it to Will's management, he claimed he was fired and told he was making it all up. Will's legal team wasted no time firing back, calling the accusations false, baseless, and reckless. But what really caught people's attention wasn't the case itself. It was how Will handled it. The old Will would have gone to war, sending in his army of publicists, planting stories and flooding the media with polished statements designed to crush the accuser's credibility. The Hollywood machine would have gone full throttle to clean up the mess. But the new Will? He did the complete opposite. He let his lawyers issue one short professional statement, and then he stayed silent. No PR spin, no interviews, no performance, just silence. The kind that speaks volumes. No sit down with Oprah, no PR tour, no carefully scripted redemption campaign. Nothing. Industry insiders couldn't believe it. One publicist even told The Hollywood Reporter it's like he doesn't care about managing his image anymore. And they're right, because he's not the same Will Smith anymore. So what exactly has Will discovered that's got Hollywood shaking? Based on leaked private convos, rare public statements, and whispers from people close to him, a clear philosophy is starting to take shape. The code behind his awakening. First principle, authenticity over approval. Will's told close friends he spent over 30 years trying to make everyone love him, and it nearly broke him. The slap wasn't just anger, it was decades of pressure finally cracking wide open. Now he's all about being real, even if that means being less liked. He's done chasing applause, he wants peace. Second principle, the avatar must die. Will's been diving deep into Buddhist philosophy, studying the idea of ego death and the false self. He now sees Will Smith, the smiling superstar, the perfect role model, as a character he created, not the person he truly is. And now, he's on a mission to kill that fake version for good. Third principle, Hollywood is a machine that consumes souls. This is the one that's making executives sweat. Behind closed doors, Will's been talking about how the entertainment system chews people up, how it turns human beings into brands, rewards fakeness, and punishes anyone who dares to be real. He's calling out the system that built him, and that's what terrifies them the most.
Forgiving yourself. We don't forgive ourselves for stuff, and it makes it impossible for us to forgive other people. That last time with Daddy-O, I just learned what love is. Love is not punishing people and beating on them for what they did and hanging on to that trifling shit, you know, that they did to you. And it's like getting out of being a victim.
Fourth principle, success based on outside validation is empty. Will raked in nearly $9 billion at the box office, snagged an Oscar, and hit every milestone Hollywood calls winning. But it still left him hollow. He realized he traded pieces of himself for approval, chasing a version of success that never filled the void. Fifth principle, the only way out is through. Will's reportedly told friends he's not trying to rebuild his old career. He's creating something brand new, a life that's built on truth, not image. And that mindset right there, it's Hollywood's worst nightmare, because his new way of thinking flips their whole system upside down. The system that builds stars, breaks them, and then sells the comeback. Then came the test. The comeback everyone was watching. Bad Boys, Ride or Die, released June 2024, the ultimate gamble. Sony dropped a massive $100 million into it, turning the film into Hollywood's litmus test. Was the world ready to forgive Will Smith? The box office numbers told a complicated story. A $56 million domestic opening and $405 million worldwide. Solid? Definitely. But not quite touching Bad Boys for Life's $426 million from 2020. The numbers said successful, but the energy around it felt different. And the real twist? Will promoted this film unlike any other he'd ever done before. Gone were the flashy talk show circuits, the forced charm, and the over-rehearsed smiles. This time, he showed up grounded, honest, stripped of the old Hollywood gloss. Growing up, Will Smith was one of my all-time favorite artists. And honestly, the Men in Black movies, still legendary. But this new version of Will, he's not chasing nostalgia, he's rewriting what it means to be a star. During interviews, Will came across completely different. Calm, reflective, and real. No over-the-top jokes, no endless charm switch flipping, no Fresh Prince persona on standby. He was just there, grounded and human. Entertainment reporters caught on right away. One journalist told Variety, "It was unsettling. He wasn't giving me the Will Smith I expected. He was giving me a real person having a real conversation." The film's success proved something big. Will could still pull crowds when the context was right. But what mattered more to him wasn't the box office numbers. It was the breakthrough behind them. He realized he didn't need the mask, the image, or the perfectly polished Will Smith avatar to win over an audience. He could show up as himself, and it still worked. That moment changed everything, because it was freeing for Will, but absolutely terrifying for Hollywood. An industry that survives on fake smiles and controlled narratives couldn't handle the idea that raw authenticity might actually sell better than the illusion. And that's where the fear really set in. The domino effect. See, Will Smith isn't just some actor. He's one of the biggest stars to ever do it. If he starts breaking down the machine in public, pulling back the curtain on how Hollywood really runs, and urging other A-listers to ditch the image game and live authentically, that's a revolution waiting to happen. Because think about it. How many other top-tier celebrities are living in that same cage, smiling through the same performance, terrified to show who they really are? If Will keeps walking this path, he might just inspire them to break free too. And that's the nightmare Hollywood can't control. Will finally broke free from performing happiness. No more pretending to be the perfect husband. No more holding together relationships that ended years ago. No more playing characters just to keep the public happy. He stopped acting for everyone else and started being real. Jim Carrey walked away from Hollywood for the same reason. Dave Chappelle literally escaped to Africa when he saw how toxic the system was. But here's the difference. Neither of them were as massive, as globally invested in, or as deeply tied to the machine as Will Smith. That's why his awakening hits harder. Because when Will starts telling the truth about how this industry really works, people listen. And that's what terrifies Hollywood the most. They can't afford for the world to actually hear him. Insiders are already whispering about the ripple effects spreading through the industry. Younger stars are starting to side-eye the PR game, questioning the fake, polished version of fame they've been taught to chase. Some are even pushing back against their image teams, choosing smaller, real projects over huge paycheck blockbusters. One young actor told Rolling Stone in late 2024, "Will Smith showed me you can survive the machine turning on you. You can choose truth and still exist on the other side." That's the nightmare Hollywood fears most. The realization that stars don't actually need the system. The system needs them. And just when the industry thought they could contain this spiritual phase, Will's transformation took an even deeper turn, one that clashed directly with Hollywood's obsession with money, image, and material success. Will's been diving deep into spirituality, working with teachers, meditating for hours, and studying ideas that completely clash with everything Hollywood stands for. One of his mentors specializes in a powerful concept called ego death. The process of realizing that the self you think you are is mostly an illusion shaped by family, culture, and society. For someone like Will, whose whole identity was built on being the world's favorite celebrity, that's not just deep, it's revolutionary. In leaked audio from a private spiritual retreat he attended in early 2024, Will reportedly said, "I thought I was Will Smith. But Will Smith is just a character I played so convincingly that I forgot I was acting. The question I'm asking now is, who am I when I'm not performing Will Smith?" That question shakes Hollywood to its core, because the entire industry depends on the exact opposite idea, that stars must never question their image. They need celebrities to believe they are their brand. They need them to stay locked inside the role, smiling on cue, because that's what's profitable. But a spiritually awakened star who sees through that illusion, that's pure chaos for the system. You can't control them. You can't predict them. You can't market them like a product. They stop being an asset and start becoming a threat. And that's where things get even more dangerous for Hollywood, because Will's awakening doesn't just shake egos, it shakes bank accounts. Hundreds of people, agents, publicists, brands, studios, depend on him staying in the game. His spiritual freedom, it's messing with their financial security. His publicist's firm, his manager's cut, his agent's commission, every piece of the machine had a stake in Will Smith staying profitable. Production companies with contracts tied to his name, brands banking on his image, studios with million-dollar projects waiting on his green light. They all depended on Will keeping that shiny Hollywood glow. So when he started pulling back from image management and chasing something deeper, when he began prioritizing spiritual growth over PR, the panic behind the scenes was real. One entertainment lawyer told The Hollywood Reporter, "You have to understand, Will Smith isn't just a person, he's a corporation. Dozens of people rely on him for their paychecks." And that's the problem. Will's awakening threatens the entire financial food chain that feeds off his fame. But this time, it's not your typical celebrity meltdown. Will's not spiraling. He's freeing himself. With a net worth rumored to be over $350 million, Will doesn't need to play Hollywood's game anymore. He doesn't need another blockbuster deal, another sponsorship, or another fake headline to stay relevant. His financial independence gives him the one power Hollywood can't handle: freedom. They can't starve him out with canceled projects. They can't lure him with paychecks. They can't manipulate him through money or fear. And that makes him more dangerous than ever to a system built on control and dependency. But there's another twist in Will's transformation. One that's just as threatening to Hollywood's power structure: the media.
The only thing that I see that is distinctly different about me is I'm not afraid to die on a treadmill, right? I will run.
You would not be outworked.
I will not be outworked,
Right.
period.
Yeah.
You know, you might have more talent than me, you might be smarter than me, you might be sexier than me, you might be all of those things. You got it on me in 9 categories. But if we get on the treadmill together, right, there's 2 things. You're getting off first, or I'm gonna die. It's really that simple.
Because how he's handling the spotlight now is unlike anything the industry's ever seen. The old Will did everything the Hollywood way. Hundreds of interviews for every project, cracking jokes, charming everyone in the room, and dropping perfect sound bites for every headline. He was the media's dream: funny, marketable, and always on. But the new Will? He barely talks to traditional press anymore. And when he does, it's calm, reflective, and completely free of that old performance energy. No fake hype, no scripted excitement for projects he doesn't care about, no pretending to love products just for a paycheck. He's done playing the promo puppet, and that's thrown entertainment media into chaos. Because for the first time ever, Will Smith doesn't need them. They need him. He can reach millions of fans directly through social media whenever he wants, with no middlemen twisting his words. But outlets like E! News, and Access Hollywood, they rely on stars like Will to feed their content machine, pull clicks, and keep the gossip cycle alive. Now that he's stopped performing, their whole system's glitching. One frustrated entertainment journalist even told Variety, "He won't give us the Will Smith we want. He just gives us this evolved person who's not that interesting for clickbait headlines." Translation: Will refuses to dance for their cameras anymore, and they have no idea how to handle that. And what's wild is how this new Will is being received, because his awakening isn't landing the same way with everyone. It's drawing a sharp generational divide. Older Hollywood veterans see Will's transformation as a warning, a reminder that you can't fight the system and win. But younger entertainers, they see something totally different, proof that you can survive by choosing authenticity over the act. Gen Z stars especially are watching Will's journey like a guidebook. They grew up in a digital world that values realness more than polish. They've seen too many perfect celebrities break down under the weight of fake images and PR control. They don't want to become products. They want to stay human. To them, Will's awakening isn't just about surviving cancel culture. It's a blueprint for how to escape the machine and still stand tall. He's showing that success doesn't have to mean selling your soul. One young actress told Teen Vogue, "Will Smith slapped someone on live TV, got canceled by Hollywood, lost millions, and somehow came out the other side more at peace than he's ever been. That's more inspiring than any comeback story Hollywood could have written for him." That sentiment is spreading fast, and it's exactly what has Hollywood trembling. Because the more it spreads, the more stars start waking up too. And that leads us to one of the most powerful parts of Will's evolution: accountability. He's not playing the victim, and he's not begging for redemption. He's not crafting some teary forgive me moment for PR points. He's just owning his actions, standing in his truth, and moving forward. Will's response flipped the entire celebrity redemption formula upside down. Normally, when a star messes up, there's a script everyone knows by heart: apologize publicly, cry during a friendly interview, show guilt, pretend to grow, and then roll out a polished comeback story. But Will, he did none of that. Instead, he posted a short apology to Chris Rock on Instagram, quietly resigned from the Academy, and then disappeared from the spotlight. No media tour, no public sob story, no staged interviews begging for sympathy. He went inward, doing the real work privately while the world tried to guess what was happening behind closed doors. Hollywood didn't know how to process it. Without the performance of redemption, how were audiences supposed to know when to forgive him? Without the carefully scripted comeback moment, how could studios rebuild the brand? Will's silence broke the playbook, and it terrified them, because he made it clear he's not interested in fixing his brand. He's not chasing approval, PR control, or the next applause line. He's building something much deeper, an authentic life. And that's a story Hollywood can't sell, because it doesn't fit their formula. And then there's the Chris Rock dimension, the other half of the storm. When Chris finally spoke up in his Netflix special Selective Outrage, he didn't hold back. He ripped the moment apart with brutal honesty, breaking down the slap, the pain, and everything that came with it. And that response only made Will's transformation even more complex. Chris Rock made it clear that slap was never just about the joke. It was about something deeper. Unresolved pain, years of pressure, and misdirected anger all exploding in one unforgettable second. But Chris also said something surprisingly insightful. He admitted that while he's got every right to be angry, he can still see that Will was going through something massive that night, something far beyond a single moment of rage. That slap wasn't just an outburst. It was the breaking point of a man unraveling under decades of emotional weight. And since then, Will has reportedly reached out to Chris multiple times, not to spin the story or control the damage, but to offer a real, human apology. No cameras, no PR team, just man-to-man accountability. According to reports, Chris still isn't ready to talk, and Will respects that. He's giving him space instead of pushing for closure on Hollywood's timeline. That dynamic says everything about this new Will Smith. His awakening isn't about dodging blame or trying to clean up his image. It's about understanding that real accountability doesn't happen on a red carpet. It happens quietly between the people actually affected. Hollywood doesn't know how to process that, because the system thrives on public perception, not private healing. And now everyone's asking the same question: what's next for Will Smith? Even insiders don't know. And that uncertainty, it's making the whole industry uneasy. Scenario 1. Will keeps following his spiritual path and slowly steps away from mainstream Hollywood altogether, walking away from the empire he helped build, choosing peace over power. Scenario 1. Will starts choosing smaller, more personal projects, the kind that feed his soul, not the studio's wallet. He steps away from being the blockbuster frontman and dives into work that moves him creatively. Less spotlight, more substance. He trades profit for peace, and for the first time in decades, he's finally content. Scenario 2. Will completes his spiritual journey and makes a comeback, but on his own terms. His authenticity starts connecting with audiences who are sick of fake, polished Hollywood clones. He becomes an even bigger star, not because of hype, but because he's real. In doing so, he changes the system from the inside out, showing everyone that truth sells better than pretense. Scenario 3. Will transforms into Hollywood's ultimate threat, a powerful insider who starts talking openly about how the machine really works. He could expose the way it chews up talent, values money over humanity, and punishes anyone who won't play along. If that happens, the industry's whole foundation could start cracking. Most analysts believe the truth will land somewhere between the first two paths. Will keeps acting, but only on his terms. He'll make fewer movies, smaller checks, and take on only projects that align with his values. Less commercial, more meaningful. Less pressure, more freedom. But then there's scenario 4, the one nobody in Hollywood even wants to imagine. Will could just walk away completely, retire from acting, vanish from the system, and focus fully on his spiritual growth, his family, and his peace of mind. And that would be Hollywood's ultimate nightmare. Not another cancel culture story, but the tale of a man who conquered the entire industry, realized it cost him his soul, and decided it simply wasn't worth it. The impact of Will's awakening goes way beyond his personal story. It's shaking the entire entertainment industry at a time when the ground was already cracking beneath it. Streaming has blown up the old Hollywood system. Social media has flipped the power dynamic between stars and audiences, and younger generations are done with fake perfection. They crave realness. And now, Will Smith's transformation is speeding up that collapse. He's living proof that the emperor has no clothes, that the machine only works if you believe in it. He's showing that a celebrity can step out of line, reject the performance, and still survive, maybe even thrive. Other stars are paying close attention. Some are terrified, watching what happened to Will and thinking, no way I'd risk that. They stay in line, smiling for the cameras. But others, they're inspired. They see Will not as a warning, but as a symbol of freedom. Hollywood wants everyone to see his story as a cautionary tale. See what happens when you rebel, when you stop performing, when you break the illusion. But the new generation isn't buying it. To them, Will's story is a revelation. Look how he survived the machine turning on him. Look how he chose truth and found peace. Look how he built something real after the illusion collapsed. And that's the most dangerous part for Hollywood, because this isn't just one man's awakening anymore. It's spreading. The system's cracks are widening, and Will Smith might just be the spark that finally blows the whole illusion wide open. There are already clear signs that Will's awakening is sparking something bigger across Hollywood. Behind the scenes, other high-profile stars have started meeting with the same spiritual teachers he's worked with. Some are pushing back against their management teams for the first time, refusing to fake enthusiasm or play by PR rules. Others are finally choosing authenticity over approval, something that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. One A-list actress even told her therapist, who later spoke anonymously to a journalist, "If Will Smith can survive losing everything and still come out at peace, maybe I don't need to keep pretending either." That quiet confession says it all. The idea is spreading through Hollywood like wildfire, quietly but powerfully. And the execs, they're terrified, because deep down, they know their entire empire depends on keeping celebrities trapped inside the act. Once they start breaking free, the machine loses its grip. So why is Will Smith's awakening the industry's biggest nightmare? Let's break it down. 1. He's too big to ignore. When someone with Will's global power starts questioning the system, the world listens. 2. He's too rich to control. You can't pressure a man worth $350 million who doesn't care about the next paycheck. Money doesn't move him anymore. 3. He's too honest to manipulate. All the PR tricks and spin tactics crumble when someone's fully committed to truth and transparency. 4. He's too influential to contain. Younger celebrities are watching closely, and they're starting to follow his lead, choosing realness over reputation. 5. And that's the part that scares Hollywood most. Will's awakening isn't just a personal transformation anymore. It's the beginning of a revolution they can't stop.
You wouldn't call something a problem if you understood it. The problem is you don't understand it, right? That's why you're calling it a problem. You don't call things problems that you have complete comprehension of. The process of freeing yourself from the pain and the misery of your difficulties and your problems is in constantly cultivating a broader comprehension.
6. He's living proof that the system is optional. You don't have to bow to Hollywood's machine to survive. You can walk away and still come out thriving. That realization alone sends shockwaves through the industry. 7. He knows where all the bodies are buried. 30 years deep inside the system means Will understands exactly how it works. Every trick, every illusion, every dark corner they'd rather keep hidden. And the scariest part, if he ever decided to talk, he could expose the whole game. 8. He's found peace outside the performance, and that's the most dangerous truth of all. Because now, Will Smith is visibly happier after losing his spotless image than he ever was at the height of his fame. That flips Hollywood's entire promise upside down, the one they sell to every dreamer chasing stardom. Play the game, build your image, win success, and you'll be happy. But Will did all that, every step, and found emptiness. Then he lost it all and found peace. That single truth is poison to Hollywood's system, because if people start believing it, that fame and image don't equal fulfillment, the whole illusion collapses. The final truth, Will Smith's awakening isn't just a comeback story, it's a full-on revelation. He's not a celebrity who broke down and bounced back. He's a man who woke up, saw the illusion for what it really was, and walked away from it. He rejected the performance, chose authenticity, and traded fame for freedom, even when it cost him everything the system holds sacred. And that's exactly why Hollywood fears him, because his peace is the one thing they can't sell, script or control. He went from being Hollywood's perfect product to its worst nightmare. From the smiling avatar to the fully awakened man. From performing love for cameras to actually feeling it for real. From craving approval to finding peace within himself. And the whole industry watched in disbelief, powerless to stop him, control him, or pull him back into their grip. Will Smith's awakening isn't just one man's redemption arc. It's a mirror held up to Hollywood itself. It's forcing the industry to confront its own reflection. A machine that turns people into brands, rewards performance over honesty, and devours souls in exchange for profit and fame. Will saw all of that, every crack, every illusion, and still chose to walk away, even when that meant losing everything he'd built over 30 years. And that choice, that's what shakes Hollywood to its core, because it proves what they never wanted anyone to realize. You don't need them. You can break free from the system, drop the mask, live your truth, and not only survive, but truly thrive. The slap that stunned the world wasn't the end of Will Smith's story. It was just the beginning of his awakening. And that awakening might be the spark that exposes Hollywood's biggest secret. Peace doesn't come from fame, it comes from freedom. So what do you think? Is Will's transformation real or just another act? Has he truly found peace? Or is he still battling the ghost of the image he once built? And what does his story say about the true cost of fame and the price of authenticity? Let's talk about it. Drop your thoughts below. And if this deep dive opened your eyes to a different side of Will's journey and Hollywood's illusion, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment to keep the conversation going. This story isn't over yet, it's just getting started.